So I recently visited the Hay-on-Wye Literary Festival, and in addition to buying quite a lot of books, I also had my voice stolen by Stephen Fry, but we'll get onto that in a minute. So for those who don't know, Hay-on-Wye is a very small town in Hereford in mid Wales, and it has been labelled as the world's first book town, mainly because there are just so many bookshops, and because of this, the town also became the home of what is perhaps the most famous literary festival in the world. Now I've been going to Hay-on-Wye for about 20 years, and I've made an annual pilgrimage to the festival for about the last 8. So the first time that I was ever taken there, I was around about 10 years old. It was my nan who took me, and the town was nowhere near as famous as it is now, so much so that all of the bookshops sold all of their books for £1 each. Like seriously, it didn't matter which bookshop you went into, you could guarantee to find books for £1. And admittedly, whilst these books weren't recent releases, they were classic books that you could pick up for £1. So somewhere in the shelves I have a beautiful copy of The Two Towers by Tolkien, and I got it for £1. But as the years have seen Hay-on-Wye's fame increase, so has the book prices, where now you'll be very lucky if you find a book for less than a £5, which is still a bargain, mind. And while my nostalgic self can harken back to the days of £1 books, a lot of those bookshops from 20 to 25 years ago were essentially the same, whereas the beauty of modern day Hay-on-Wye is that you now have a plethora of independently run specialised bookshops. Specialised bookshops that saw me buy 7 brand new books despite the massive TBR that I had behind me. But before I get onto the books, I'm going to explain how Stephen Fry stole my voice. With the advancements of generative AI, we are seeing a lot of stories in the news about people having both their work and their identity stolen by these big companies who are using this information in order to train their AI models. And this also happened to Stephen Fry. One of the things that Stephen is most well known for is his narration of the Harry Potter audiobooks. Now obviously you have hours upon hours of audio recordings of Stephen's voice, and what happened was that some company took those recordings, stole Stephen's voice, and used it to create an AI clone of Stephen's voice that could essentially say whatever they wanted. Now Stephen obviously didn't sign off on this and was understandably furious by having his voice stolen. And this is just one of the dangers of generative AI that not everyone knows about, because all of these companies are pushing AI onto us in ways that most people won't understand. So when you have people on Facebook showing off their AI generated art, they have no idea about the impact that artwork has, because not only could that artwork have been stolen from actual creatives, it also has a massive impact on the environment as well. So this is what Stephen Fry was trying to get across in the Hay-on-Wye Festival with an exhibit called Vocalize. Now Vocalize was an incredible exhibit that started off innocuous but then got very, very sinister very, very quickly. So under the guise of you becoming a voice artist, you went into a booth and recorded some very, very simple sentences. Now using these sentences, the Vocalize AI then stole your voice and used it to advertise some pretty horrific stuff. Whilst I can't go into details on here for community guideline reasons, trust me when I say that a lot of the things that I heard back were things that I would definitely never say. So after the experience, Vocalize then allows you to download a small snippet of your stolen voice. So what follows is what I got from Vocalize. Now remember, this is not me saying it, it was an AI clone that was trained after stealing my voice.
Thanks to these remarkable pills, I get sex every night. Apply today for our revolutionary internal bleach treatment. We guarantee you won't live to regret it. Invest your savings in Squirrel Coin. You'd be nuts not to.
Sign up today and your voice could be all over the internet in minutes. What have you got to lose?
It's pretty terrifying stuff, and if you haven't picked up on my tone or intonation regarding this subject, let me just say outright, I think generative AI is completely awful, and the only reason that I agreed to do Vocalize and the reason why I'm sharing the results is purely for educational purposes. So now with all that out of the way, shall we finally get onto the books? So I've got 7 books in total. The majority of these are from the aforementioned specialised bookshops, but then I also have one from one of the classic Hay-on-Wye bookshops. Now this year I decided to set myself a little challenge, as during my normal visits to Hay-on-Wye I take the what happens in Vegas approach. So it doesn't matter how many books I've bought previously, it doesn't matter if I'm on any sort of self-imposed book buying ban. Whatever happens in Hay-on-Wye stays in Hay-on-Wye. I can buy as many books as I please, and there can be no judgment from anyone based on how much I spend. So in the past I spent upwards of about 150 quid on books. So rather than spend that much money again this year, I thought I would focus my energies more just into a specific genre, which is why all of these books are specifically horror or horror adjacent. The first book that I bought was Hex by Thomas Oldhuvelt. This is the only book that I bought from the more classic Hay-on-Wye stores, and as you can see, I've got it for the low price of £4.95. And this book is described as follows. Welcome to Black Spring, a picturesque town with an ugly secret. The 17th century woman with sewn shut eyes and mouth walks its streets, enters its home, watches its people when they sleep. They call her the Black Rock Witch. So accustomed to her presence, the townsfolk often forget what will happen if her eyes ever open. To protect themselves, the Black Spring elders use high-tech surveillance to quarantine the town. Frustrated with the lockdown, the town's teenagers decide to break the rules and go viral with the haunting. But no one foresees the dark nightmare that awaits them all. So if you know anything about me, you know that I love a horror book set in a spooky town. My own novel is located in a very similar place, so obviously I had to pick this up. So this next book came from a place called Richard Booth's Bookshop. Whilst not completely specialised for a specific genre, this bookshop is Hay's biggest full-price bookshop, so it has an incredible range of genres, including horror. Now the thing that I find funniest hilarious about this place is that the horror shelves are actually in the basement. So you have to walk down these really rickety steps into this very, very low-ceilinged room that the last time I was there it smelled very faintly of farts. Now I think that was just due to one of the patrons and not the bookshop itself. So whilst down in this fart-smelling basement, I picked up Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. So Wanderers is about a decadent rock star, a deeply religious radio host, a disgraced scientist, and a teenage girl who may be the world's last hope. Shana wakes up one morning to discover her little sister in the grip of a strange malady. She appears to be sleepwalking. She cannot talk and cannot be woken up, and she is heading with inexorable determination to a destination that only she knows. But Shana and her sister are not alone. On their journey, they will discover an American convulsed with terror and violence, where this apocalyptic epidemic proves less dangerous than the fear of it. As the rest of society collapse all around them and an ultraviolet militia threatens to exterminate them, the fate of the sleepwalkers depends on unraveling the mystery behind the epidemic. The terrifying secret will either tear the nation apart or bring the survivors together to remake a shattered world. Now this gives me very big Stephen King's The Stand energy, which I am all for. Now these next two books came from the specialised shop Murder and Mayhem, and with a name like that you would have thought that would have been my ultimate destination on my quest to find some horror books. However, while Murder and Mayhem is great, the books can either fit into the category of classic horror or modern day thriller, which wasn't what I was really looking for on this challenge. However, I picked up two books, and these are perhaps the most mainstream of what I bought in Hay-on-Wye. We have The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Now this has reared its head on social media again, and quite rightly so. The Exorcist is a classic. I have seen the movie countless times, but I have never actually read the book, so I decided to finally take the plunge. And then the next book is Hell House by Richard Matheson, again a staple of the genre and something I've never actually read. So for the few of you out there who don't know what these books are about, we have The Exorcist first. Terror begins unobtrusively, noises in the attic, in the child's room, an odd smell, the displacement of furniture, an icy chill. Easy explanations are offered, then frightening changes are seen in 11-year-old Reagan. Medical tests shed no light on her symptoms, but it is as if a different personality has invaded her body. A Jesuit priest, Father Damien Karras, is called in. Is it truly possible that a demonic presence has possessed the child? Exorcism seems to be the only answer. And in Hell House, for over 20 years, Belasco House has stood empty. Its shadowed walls have witnessed scenes of almost unimaginable horror and depravity. 2 previous expeditions to investigate its secrets met with disaster. The participants destroyed by murder, suicide, or insanity. Now, a new investigation brings 4 strangers to the Forbidden Mansion who are determined to probe Belasco House for the ultimate secrets of life and death. Each has his or own reason for daring the unknown torments and temptations of the mansion, but can any soul survive what lurks within the most haunted house on earth? So 2 true classics that definitely fit within my challenge. Now finally we have these 3 books, and these came from my favourite bookshop within Hay-on-Wye. The shop is called Hay-on-Wye, and not only is it a safe haven for the LGBTQ+ community, but it also stocks books written by people within that same community. And one of the many incredible things about that community is that queer people know how to write horror. So the first book of the 3 is more sci-fi than it is horror, however it hits so many of my interests that I just couldn't leave it behind. So this is Prophet by Helen MacDonald and Sin Blaché, and it details a mysterious event. An all-American diner appears overnight in a remote British field. More and more objects materialise: toys, fairground rides, pets, and other treasures, mementos of the past. The deaths quickly follow. A devastating weapon, Prophet, is bringing these memories to life, then stifling innocent people with their own joy, but nobody knows who created it or why. Sunil Rao and Adam Rubinstein are tasked with investigating this strange new reality. After a troubled past together, they are drawn closer than ever to defend what they both hold most dear. It's definitely something that I'll enjoy. Next up we have Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Now Chuck also has another horror book out at the moment called Bury Your Gaze. However, I've seen a lot more of that on social media than I have Camp Damascus, so as I haven't heard much about this, I chose this one instead. Now in addition to having an absolutely stunning cover, it also sounds really cool. Camp Damascus, nestled in the Montana wilderness, is the world's most effective gay conversion camp. Parents send their children from around the world to experience the program's 100% success rate. But this story isn't about that. This story is about Rose Darling, a God-fearing young lady who can't stop puking up flies. It's about her parents who ignore her visions of an eerie woman with sagging pale skin who watches from the woods. It's about the desires deep inside Rose that don't seem to make any sense, and her waking nightmares that are beginning to feel more like memories. And maybe, just maybe, it's a little bit about Camp Damascus after all. So yeah, obviously everything that I adore, so I had to buy that. And finally we have a book with perhaps the best book cover I've seen in a long time. We have A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, which is just absolutely gorgeous. So a botanical daughter, it is an unusual thing to live in a botanical garden. Simon and Gregor are an unusual pair of gentlemen. Hidden away from the disapproving tattle of Victorian London, they are free to follow their own interests without interference. For Simon, this means working his taxidermical art. Gregor's business is exotic plants, lucrative but harmless enough, until his latest acquisition, a strange fungus that shows sign of intellect beyond any plant he's seen, inspires him to attempt a masterwork, true intelligent life from plant matter. Driven by the glory he'll earn from the Royal Horticultural Society for such an achievement, Gregor ignores the flaws in his plan, that intelligence cannot be controlled, that plants cannot be reasoned with, and that the only way his plant beast will flourish is if he uses a recently deceased corpse for the substrate. Now this is just full on Little Shop of Horrors, and I am here for it. Like, I am a massive fan of Little Shop of Horrors. I have an Audio 2 model set that I need to finish, so this book just very much spoke to that love. So there's the book mark from Hay-on-Wye. Honestly, if you go to Hay-on-Wye, visit Hay-on-Wye, it is an incredible place. So there we have it, 7 books and proof that my voice was stolen by Stephen Fry. If you've enjoyed your time here, I have a monthly newsletter where you can learn all about my debut horror novel Asylums, which will be coming out later this year. There will also be stories much like this and exclusive giveaways, so make sure that you sign up. The direct link will be in the description, or you can visit thomasgoodyear.co.uk. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for spending time with me, sign up to my newsletter, and I hope to see you soon.